want to come to crowdfunding and they want to hit $1 million. They come to me and they're like, Nalin, the $1 million is what I want. I'm here, first call, I'm going to do $1 million. It's just one of those things where it seems kind of like a vanity metric at this point, where if you hit $1 million, you're like, I'm successful. But there's a lot of things that goes into hitting $1 million, not only like from the front end crowd building perspective, but also from the back end kind of like fulfillment perspective that a lot of people don't think about when they're like, I'm going to hit $1 million. So let's talk about goal setting and appropriate goal setting and what that is and what that's like for a crowdfunding campaign. Okay. Well, first off, the point of a crowdfunding campaign isn't to run your business, right? It's not to build your business. It's not to run your business for a year. It's really to get that first run of inventory, or that whatever first, second, third, that run of inventory prepaid for by people who are super excited about the product itself, are super excited to have the product itself. Okay. And so with that said, the scope of what you actually need to raise is actually a lot smaller than you think it is. Okay. Because a lot of factories that you work with, a lot of creators, makers, companies, businesses that you work with in order to make this run of inventory, right, has an MOQ, a minimum order quantity that they want you to meet. And oftentimes the MOQ doesn't reach $1 million unless it's a crazy large order for some reason. But typically the MOQ doesn't mean that you have to raise $1 million, right? But I can see potentially that happening, but most of the time it's not going to be that. Okay. So basically, again, crowdfunding is for you to help, for you to get help from your fans to get that first run of inventory paid for, that run of inventory paid for. With that said, the scope is a lot smaller. Okay, so what do you actually need for that? You need supplies, you need the molds created, you need to have the time paid for. There's all these things that go into that first run. Okay, and knowing that, put those numbers in. It's not numbers that have your business running for a year. It's not numbers that I need to now build my website so that then I can start taking orders on my website. It's not that. It's really mostly for getting that first run, especially for a physical product, because that's the most expensive part of getting a physical product that you can touch, feel, hold to market. Okay. And so with crowdfunding, that's what your goal should be set at. Okay. How to get enough money for that first run. And when you want to take things into account, you want to take things into account too. Like, for example, the crowdfunding platform itself, they take a few percentage off from the final total rates, right? So if you actually need, say, $20,000 to pay your manufacturer for that first run, make sure you buffer a little bit too for the percentage that the crowdfunding platform takes for you using their platform as a pre-order site, for you kind of tapping into their audience. Another thing is that payment processing fees, right? A lot of these crowdfunding platforms use a payment processor that is called Stripe. And Stripe also, operates by taking fees out of transactions. Okay, so you add another little buffer on top of your total crowdfunding goal in order to be able to pay for that, so you don't come up shortchanged after the campaign and after you pay all these fees. Okay, and so again, $1 million, it's a great vanity metric, but when you get started talking about your campaign and what you want to do and what goal you need to have and set, just make sure you're realistic about that particular number. Because raising $1 million isn't bad, right? Sounds cool, sounds great, but there's a lot of things that go into it too, right? Raising $1 million might mean that your facility cannot produce as many in quantity as you need to in order to fulfill the $1 million worth of order, in which case you have to find a second facility and you might need to kind of stagger shipment times in the back end, right? There's a lot of things that actually come with raising more money that might not be suitable for you in your kind of first run for crowdfunding and your first entrepreneurial journey, because the logistics do get really, really complicated, especially if you're dealing with people who back from multiple countries with multiple different kind of postal regulation and different VATs and different customs duties, taxes, and different kind of speed for shipment. There's all these different questions to really take into account the larger your campaign gets. Okay. So as a first campaign, just be really, really cognizant about what your goal is going to be. And there's kind of two types of goals too I want to talk about. Right. The first is the external goal, the one that we just chatted about here, where you have a set number that you need to reach on your crowdfunding campaign in order to make sure that your fees are paid for using the platform, and also make sure that you're able to do that first production run of your actual project itself, right? That's like external goal. It's the goal that you actually write on the crowdfunding like campaign page itself, right? Under Kickstarter or Indiegogo, in the first section, you see that there's a goal number. Okay, that's the external goal. You can also have an internal goal, which is great. Okay, an internal goal is pretty much like a reach goal. A reach goal of like, hey, I want to, hit this external goal in order to meet what I have to meet in order to produce. But an internal goal is, it would be really great if we reach this other goal, right? So a lot of time people set like, hey, an external goal is $20,000 is what we legit need to take in order to produce our thing, whatever the thing is, yeah, and get it to backers really seamlessly, really easily. Our next level, right, is maybe $50,000. And with $50,000, you still can produce with the same manufacturer. Your shipping and creation and product making time frame is still around the same. There's not, the supplies are still available in order to meet all the demands of getting to $50,000. It's just now that it means that you actually have a lot more backers and a lot more people in your community who are people who are paying for your product and paying for your idea. Okay, so like those are kind of the two goals. Okay, and it's a lot of it is really constrained by the limits of the physical world, right? The limits of the physical world, because as entrepreneurs, we live in a world where anything is possible. We live in a world where you can make something from scratch and make it work, right? You can dream an idea and really want it to be made and make it, right? As entrepreneurs, that's what we do. Okay, but a lot of the time entrepreneurs are constrained by things around them, right? Like a manufacturing plant. How many units can it make in a certain period of time? That's a real constraint. Supplies. How much of the supply of the actual raw material can I get at this price in order to, still make it worth the actual manufacturing process, so that my margins stay around the same and not increase. If I'm buying too much of something, sure, like the price per unit can go down. However, if it's starting to get difficult to get that material, that supply, then it might get more expensive actually, right? So it's just constraints from the physical world, okay, that we really have to take into account when we're thinking about this. Things like packaging too, right? Packaging, it can be standard, things like that. But what if the plant that like actually creates the packaging products for you, the packaging like box for you, can't keep up with that demand? What do you do then, right? It costs more money. The more money you raise, the more issues come with it. So when a lot of people come to me and they're saying $1 million, and if you're thinking, I want to raise $1 million, think about all those other constraints out there too that can make it a little hard for you to get there, okay? Especially for a first campaign. I want to be real here, and I want to be kind of cautious, because a lot of people, aim for the stars, which I love, aim for the stars, that's great. But you have to be really, really meticulous and really, really careful about how you aim for the stars, because there are all these constraints that come into play the more money you raise and the the more backers you have, right? That's kind of the classic failure story for crowdfunding in a way, right? A few years back, there was a product called the Coolest Cooler. If you haven't heard of it, go Google it and go like check it out. Basically, it's a smart cooler, has like a blender on it. There's like a Bluetooth speaker, and It charges your phone. There's all these cool things about it. So people are like, oh wow, I would love one. I could take it to the beach, I could take it camping. There's all these cool like scenarios in which I could take this cooler. And so a lot of people ordered it. I believe it got to like $20 million or above in orders, in pre-orders. And at the end of the day, yes, they got thousands of backers and like millions in pre-orders. But at the end of the day, the downfall came on the back end, right? Like, yay, we have all this money raised, but supply facilities backed up, so, actual manufacturing, couldn't happen because the volume, shipping was more complicated than they expected. There's all these things that happen the more backers you have, right? And so the higher you raise and the higher you go, the further you can fall. So I want to be really realistic about this. I want to be not kind of a Debbie Downer, because that's not what we're here for, right? We're here for like being entrepreneurs and like making things happen, right? I have a tattoo on my foot that says we'll figure it out. Okay. But I want to make sure that you understand what it means to raise money too. Because it's not just, taking the funds and taking the pre-order funds and like, kind of going off in the sunset. It's really being able to fulfill those promises that you have with backers too. And sometimes it can get really hard to fulfill those promises if it gets way, way, way too high and way, way too much. Okay. And I want you to be able to use crowdfunding again and again and again and again in order to build multiple products, launch multiple product lines. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that not only are you able to, launch and fund, right? This beginning part, but you're able to do everything else too, like get the product made at a time that you promise people, right? Get the product shipped out to people on time. Be able to build up a customer service team that can support inquiries and can support all the questions and all the comments that are going to come your way online, offline, as you are trying to maneuver global backers, right? So there's all these questions that come up after the campaign too that a lot of people don't think about, right? And it really starts with a goal, right? Making sure you have a reasonable goal so that you can grow and you can create support systems and automate automations and processes that can support the growth of a company, okay? And if you can do those things successfully by setting a really reasonable goal, and you can do those things successfully in the back end, you can come back again and again and again and again and start taking pre-orders again and again and again for new cool ideas that can, again, really build up the SKUs of your business so that you can start, diversifying your product line. You can start building up version 1, 2, 3 of your different products that people like when you get feedback. There's all these things you can do. Like there's a company called Peak Design that does this all the time. Every new product they have, now they just come to Kickstarter, right? Like Segway as a company, now they just use like Indiegogo as a way to launch new products because they know that these early adopters are really, really excited about these new cool products. And they're able to do that again and again and again because they set reasonable goals. They know exactly what they can produce, when they can produce, how much they can produce, and how they can ship and get stuff to backers. And they're able to fulfill those promises really adequately, right? So that they can come back and still have that trust from backers. Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover today. If there's any questions, feel free to leave in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, feel free to give this a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel because I'd love to kind of have more of you come join me on these talks and, go out and crush it. Thanks.